Hello, I'm Erin from CT Global Solutions, a SAS Gold partner and reseller specializing in profitability analytics, financial management, and demand and supply planning. Welcome to our SAS demo series, Deconstructing Demand Planning. In this video, Ed Katz, Principal Solution Architect at CT Global, will demo SAS Intelligent Planning, showcasing merchandising and omnichannel analytics. He begins with exploration, supply chain evaluation and forecast value add, discusses predictive analytics and automation, and reviews demand and supply planning, workflows, what-if scenarios, and a whole lot more. Let's dive into the presentation.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Ed Katz, as you can see there. I am a principal solution architect specializing in analytics and demand planning, intelligent planning, and today we're going to give a high-level demonstration of SAS Intelligent Planning. CT Global Solutions, as you can see there, is a reseller and gold partner of SAS and has implemented these, as you can see, with great success in the marketplace. So today's agenda, which will be about 20 to 30 minutes, is going to focus really on demand planning. Number one is exploration. Number two is predictive analytics. Number three is planning. And then call to action. People often ask, what's my next steps in implementing a demand planning solution? So for exploration, as you can read there, we're going to talk about supply chain evaluation, exception management, key performance indicators, a concept called forecast value add, where we can measure the impact of overrides and statistical forecast in the organization. Number two is predictive analytics. Key to predictive analytics is automation, accuracy, and scalability. Forecast management using advanced, especially causal models that improve accuracy and help reduce your inventory, safety stock, and service levels, improving service levels. Number three is we're going to get into the planning methodology, which is demanded supply planning, all the workflow that's associated with it, simple examples of what-if scenarios and sales and operations planning management, and then a call to action. So as far as the big picture is concerned, this circle represents the process of demand planning. And I just want to emphasize we are going to go into a deeper dive in future videos and future presentations of each one of these, the stat forecasting, the workflow forms, and the evaluation and insights. But one thing I want to emphasize here in the middle as we go through this demonstration is getting information into what we call demand repository, which is your historical demand, causal factors, promotions, prices, and things of that nature, events and outliers, all go into producing the model. And actually, even though I'm going to demonstrate it, our clients use this in an automated fashion. It produces the stat forecast really on weekends while you're sleeping. So large clients, for example, literally produce hundreds of millions of forecast environments, sometimes hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of forecasts, but it really happens automatically, scalable, accurate, and produces it on maybe a weekly, monthly, daily basis, depending on what your needs are for the category. Number two, we're going to go into the planning mechanism, which pushes that statistical forecast through a workflow, forms that are going to show units, dollars, unit of measure by week, by month, by quarter, to do financial planning statements and allow users, as you can see towards the right there at the bottom, by country, by region, by planner mechanism, and part of the hierarchy that you see there, where marketing, sales, finance, customers, supply chain managers can make their discretionary inputs into the plan. And all of that you'll see is administered in the administration methodology. And then we're going to do supply demand planning in a consensus form, push that out for results and deployment, where we can get evaluation and insights into the mechanism. So these are the three areas, again, that we're going to talk about and demonstrate. And again, I want to emphasize we're going to do a short version today, and each one of these pieces and parts will have a deeper dive in future presentations. So if you want to go into the details of statistical forecasting and talk about the ARIMA models and exponential smoothing models and automated parameter settings, we're going to do that in a later session where we have more time. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate briefly exploration. So we're over to the left here, where we're going to talk about evaluation and insights. Just going to switch methods here. And here we're in an area, just as a high level demonstration, into an area called visual analytics, where we're going to take insights into our supply chain. So in our samples test data here, we have products that are by category, by group, and if you want, as you'll see in a little bit, right down to the SKU level. There's different key performance indicators, as an example, where you can look at shipments, sell out quantity, sell out amount, inventory, out of stocks, forecast accuracy, inventory day supply, et cetera, et cetera. And in the more detailed demo, we'll go into each one of these in greater detail and how they're produced. But basically what you're looking at here is just a map of the territory that you're interested in, and of course, any issues that you might have within your organization. So if you want to click on forecast accuracy very quickly, and you want to see where your major issues are, and you want to see it by category because you're the planner for that area, you can see that and drill into, again, any metric that you want by any category or planner name. Just some other things that you can do here, just as an example, but we can drill into the forecast accuracy. Again, this is by category and subcategory, and we can see a forecast accuracy metric that is not meeting our expectations, and of course we're going to drill into that. And we're also, of course, looking in this case a day supply that is above for inventory our target. And of course, that's an exception, and we want to kind of make sure that that mix is correct so we can do a better investment of our inventory. And again, we can do this by various groups, by regions, and things of that nature. In another area here, we're taking a look at inventory control, and we're looking at inventory day supply. Again, as we saw earlier, we've got a category, subcategory, we've got an inventory day supply that is above our metric. Part of it is because of our forecast accuracy. Of course, the greater error in forecast accuracy, the more inventory you're likely to carry to cover your service level. And again, you can kind of drill into the various pieces and parts here if you want. So here again, a greater degree of clarity as to where your major problems are. And there's some other metrics for forecast accuracy and bias that are scanned into your reports. Another area for evaluation, we can look at charts for dollars associated with sell-in and sell-out quantities, current forecast versus actual in various quantities. A really nice feature here is the ability to do what's called forecast value add. So in forecast value add, what we're doing is we're measuring planners, if you'll just point here to the bottom, and we see that the planner and that area that he or she is responsible for is making overrides. They're making worse and not better. And again, you can drill into that. I think in the larger demo, you'll see where the forecast errors are occurring. And this is kind of a report card and evaluation feed to the demand planners and folks who are making overrides to that forecast to improve their overrides, perhaps rely more on the statistical forecast and less on the human bias. And lastly, just in our brief demo today, we're going to look at elasticity that is coming from the forecast itself. We'll take a deeper dive into that piece of the demonstration. But this is, as an example, going from my category, subcategory, region, and we can drill into any level that we want. The marketing folks are looking at the effects of price changes. So if I made a price change, obviously, I'm going to reduce demand, but maybe I can offset that by some promotion. And we're going to do a little bit more of that in the planner's workbench in our brief demo and a much deeper dive when we go into a deeper demo at a later date. But this is really nice for the marketing folks to examine the elasticity of our product. That is a little bit of exploration, evaluation of insights. Again, what we saw there is a series of KPIs, a series of evaluations, drill down into where my issues were occurring. They were occurring for Demand Planner 7, and we're going to give that feedback that are associated with that area. So the next thing that we're going to do is the statistical forecast. I want to emphasize this area has got many patents associated with it. The automation that's occurring here behind the scenes means you don't have to rely on statisticians or data scientists. You just present the data to it, and the system will actually produce the forecast. And again, the must-haves associated with these patents are automation, scalability, and accuracy. The automation allows you to create these models on the fly, which is a repeatable process. So whether you re-leverage, change a price, reorganize your demand signals or your distribution centers, you'll still be able to produce the millions of SKU combinations quickly at every level in the hierarchy and create, and this is really what it's all about, a greater degree of accuracy. So what's occurring here in a quick illustration of machine learning. So this is occurring behind the scenes, okay? And again, there are many, many patents associated with it, but for every level in the hierarchy, we're going to look at a time series in terms of history, create a forecast horizon. Machine learning automatically creates a holdout sample for the training period. The system is then going to scan that and produce a set of competing models associated with that. ARIMA models, for example, are causal models. Take a look at the causal factors associated with them, whether they be events, price, holidays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, POS means downstream data if you are a distributor or a CPG company or a retailer or a manufacturer looking at your upstream distribution centers. And it's going to create a series of competing models, pick the one obviously with the lowest error, and that is what is going to produce the forecast. Now that again is occurring behind the scenes. Now what you're going to see with competing forecasting methodologies that are highly manual, difficult to do, is you're going to see a linear line associated with that, and then you'll manually apply your promotions and prices and try to detect outliers manually. This is all occurring behind the scenes, and it's occurring very quickly for every level within the hierarchy. So what you're going to see very quickly is a hierarchical forecast. And again, it's going to create a hierarchical forecast with independent models. I won't go into what these ARIMAs and unobserved components and neural networks are all causal models, which are going to create a higher degree of accuracy at every level within the organization. So again, at this point, I'm going to just very quickly get into what that looks like. So we're going to get over here into the forecasting mechanism. So those of you who may or may not be familiar with SAS, we organized our forecast into what are called projects, and projects are associated with different kind of forecasts. They could be by country, by degrees of hierarchy. They could be by planner mechanism, whatever you decide. We're not going to get into this now, but I hope you'll join us in a future presentation where we're going to build a new project. And what that's going to illustrate, although I'll demonstrate a little bit of that here, but what that illustrates is how you can present data that you'd like forecast, all the variables, et cetera, just hit a button and it's going to produce the forecast for you, build the models, optimize the parameters, detect the outliers, and produce these champion models and the forecast. So no statistical knowledge required, but these are already pre-built models, and these are shipment forecasts, point of sale forecasts, just to show you what one of these look like. And again, this is, once these are built, and accepted, these are going to kind of run behind the scenes. But again, another patent that we have, I won't get into it now, but we run these on pipelines. Okay, here's pipeline 1 and pipeline 2. And pipeline 1, which is an easy one to see, gathers the data, produces the forecast, compares the models that we talked about earlier, and produces an output. And then we do a pipeline comparison. And when we built this, it was really just this simple. Okay, this is all that you had to do, is presented data, let's say from an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV, into the data set that we see here. We define what the data is. So time variables, for example, if I click here, it's kind of hard to see, but this is a weekly forecast. And then this is what's called the dependent variable. So we're looking at a downstream forecast, what our target is. And then we have what are called by variables, which is, again, the hierarchy. in order, and any independent variables like price, promotion, buy one, get one free, et cetera, et cetera. You then build those pipelines and then run them. So, to run a pipeline, both of them, you just hit the run pipeline button and it creates these forecasts. Auto forecast auto forecasting is just running a series of exponential smoothing and ARIMA models, but it's not independent models at every level. This is my favorite, which is generating forecasts at every level in the specific hierarchy. And then you get into much more advanced models for those statisticians that might be interested in this. We have stacked neural network models, which we'll get into at a later date. But you run this, produce an output. You'll see the pipeline comparison after it's been run, okay, if you're interested. So we ran, obviously, pipeline 2, hierarchical forecasting. It was the champion forecast because the method of choosing the champion model is called weighted MAPE. We'll get into greater detail in a later presentation. But this is the distribution, the number of failures, the number of intermittent time series that we did for that pipeline. And then if we want to see those forecasts, again, if you're kind of a statistician or a planner and you want to see those forecasts, you can see those here in the override section. And in the override section, you'll be able to, at a later time, we'll discuss what attributes are. You can do a higher degree of filtering, which is kind of really a cool thing. But this is, again, your hierarchical forecast where you can look at store locations, as you saw earlier, by product at any level. And this is your forecast. You can see the holdout sample and how well it's performing, which is really good. And you can see the forecast in the blue area, the upper and lower confidence limit. Here at the bottom, in the table view, you can actually see the statistical forecast. You can perform overrides. I won't do the overrides here in the interest of time, but you can do overrides for series of forecasts and do automatic reconciliation. Here you see the forecast for the future period with the upper and lower confidence limit. And of course, you can export this into a data sheet. So again, this is the time series forecasting mechanism that creates the forecast. And the beauty of this is, again, you've created very comprehensive models at every level to produce a greater degree of accuracy. On the last part of my demonstration, just go to the last part, which is the planning. Okay. So again, what we've done, just FYI, is we've done evaluation and insights, a statistical forecast. That at some point in time, on a typically a weekly basis or a monthly basis, depending on what your S&OP flow or whatever is going to populate these workflow forms. So sales, marketing, finance, for whatever level in the hierarchy and periodicity that they need to see, are going to see different forms. And we're going to see these forms in a couple of different ways. You'll be seeing them by dollars, in different currencies, in different quantities, in different unit of measure, in different periodicities, in different ways. And we're just going to see a couple of samples, but those are going to be distributed to various planning mechanisms, for example, by country, marketing, sales, finance. Even customers can touch them, and supply chain folks can touch them. And again, in different levels of the hierarchy, depending on what your planning mechanism is. And then we're going to do a demand-supply balance here at the end. For these forms, what you're going to see is somewhat different interfaces. There is, number one, an administrative tool that's associated with it that helps you define the forms themselves, how they get distributed, the hierarchies by which they get distributed, when they get submitted, who they get submitted to, what the approval mechanism is, what happens if somebody doesn't do it on time, do their form on time, are all in a very comprehensive administrative tool that we'll cover in greater detail at a later date. These forms can be Excel or a web-based worksheet. I'm going to show you a little bit of both. You can also do a lot of what-if planning tied back to the statistical forecast and that promotion planning that we were talking about earlier. So for that mechanism, I'm going to, again, kind of go back to my demand planning. And this time, I'm going to go to a different application, which is manage demand plans. So In this case, again, very simply here, we're running about 5 to 10 minutes per application. What we're doing here is we're seeing really a set of just sample worksheets, if you will. Sample worksheets that you're going to see are distributed to users. For example, promotion planner, maybe a demand planner, their worksheet is different. And somebody that does supply and demand planning that allows you to access the optimization and rough cut capacity planning mechanisms that are in place in the application to do supply demand planning. So up here, when I'm at all customers and I click this, okay, I just want you to see that I can see this either in Microsoft Excel or I can see this in a planning workbench. So very quickly, I'm just going to give you a really nice example of what one of these worksheets look like. I'm just going to format this correctly. And this is great. So what we see here is a worksheet that is the web-based version. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you the Excel version, same thing, but formatted a little bit differently. And these are various slicers, ways that you can get at various data. So again, we're kind of drilled into, just in my sample data here, into a specific product for a particular account, looking at it by dollars. You could look at it by different units of measure, eaches or pounds or euros or whatever, and by different periodicities. And what you see here in gray can't be overridden, but what you see in white can be overridden. Okay, so this is a pretty comprehensive sheet, and later I'm going to show you a much simpler version of the same sheet, but just to show you the flexibility of this, here you have sellout units, promotion sellout units, any uplifts that may be occurring, which we're going to see in a minute, and then all of your causal factor. And you know what you can do here, which is pretty good, is here you see a flag for holiday promotions and the dollars associated with it, because again, we're dealing, you'll recall, with dollars. So just to show you the power of this, I'm just going to go ahead and do very simply an override that says I'm going to do a holiday promotion, because what I want to do is I want to get rid of some inventory, and I want to increase my dollars and see what the effect that has on my gross margin. And what I'm going to go ahead and do there is I'm going to add a promotion into that week and see what the effect of my sellout unit and my sellout units and promotions are going to be if I add that. Okay, so when I change that to a 1 and I do, as you can see here, recalculate in the upper right hand corner, what you saw, voila, very sophisticated analytics are occurring behind the scenes, measuring the elasticity of adding that promotion. During that week, we've seen that the sales dollars have changed if we add that promotion. Now, we could also go down and see on this sheet things like what the effects of gross margins are and things of that nature, and cost of goods sold in the reporting area, and that changed as well. So again, you saw, here an example of a very powerful way that you can do, marketing folks in particular can do what if scenarios, tying back to promotion scenarios, price scenarios, tying back to the statistical forecast. So I'm going to close this sheet, okay? And I'm just for fun, just to show you, if you didn't like that sheet, we're going to open that very same thing in Excel. Now, I want to emphasize, this is not an independent Excel spreadsheet that you're about to see. This is something that has been actuated from a central repository, and that central repository has all the historical data associated with that spreadsheet. And again, this sheet that you see here is presented via the web, but very similar functionality have in an Excel spreadsheet. So again, you can do the very same thing here that you did before. You like this a little bit more. Yellows are overridable, grays are not. Holiday promotions over here, I could notice that persisted to a 1. I can change that to a 0. I can change the price. And I can see the effects of sell-in, sell-out units, gross margin, revenue, and things of that nature. The very same thing here. And by the way, in a longer demo, I'll do this, but you can see this again by each case, kilograms, pounds, et cetera. These are the slicers that I was talking about. And again, these are all drillable. So for example, I look at February 2016 and I can maybe expand that out to various weeks or months and things of that nature. So I'm going to just go ahead and not save that. Now, once I'm done with this, by the way, I could submit that. That becomes part of my consensus planning that I've incurred from my marketing folks. And we can determine whether we want to use that in my final consensus plan. Just one other quick thing in the time that we have here. I'm just going to show you a simpler sheet called a planning user. And again, I'm just, because I like it better personally, I am going to open this in Excel. You can see the same, this is still a web form, the same form as that you saw before. And I just wanted to, as we populate here, how much different these forms can be. So for example, in this form, you have, again, a bit of a different view. This is a planner view where we're looking at overrides of forecasts for specific customers. And again, you can pivot this any way you want. But again, these are store level forecasts in dollars. I can change these to eaches or quantities if I want. So for example, again, I can do overrides here at any level and they will allocate appropriately. So again, this is again a more complicated view. If you change any one of these, again, they will allocate, aggregate and disaggregate over a time and product dimension. Here's a simpler view of the same sheet. And again, this is something, as you can see here, where you're a planner that's associated with a particular customer, group of customers, product or product groups. These are all, again, drillable if you want. And you can make an override to these at any level. Put comments associated with this. Okay, you can insert a comment that will persist as to why you've made that override. So again, these are different forms at different times for different places, and kind of similar, where you can make changes in your purchasing plans to see the effect of expediting product in your overall cost and profitability. So in summary, we have now a call to action. You might be wondering, where do I start? I've never done analytics before. I've accomplished any exploration. Where do I start? Well, one of the things that we offer together with SAS and CT Global, and I've done about 50 of these, is what's called a readiness assessment. It's really a questionnaire and a 1 or 2 day review that measures your data readiness, your organization and process, how that's going to feed into your analytics and back to your organization, and your ability to put that into your current infrastructure. And we take a look at these kind of concepts in terms of data, in terms of business, executive sponsors and value quantification, in terms of process methodology, and in terms of analytics. Do you have even hierarchical definitions? Are there metrics associated with this? What are your goals for a project? How would we score it? Can we incorporate causals? And how we can build trust into a process. So in this readiness assessment, some of the goals here in your action plan is producing a high-level project plan, including timing and resources, and we leave with you and provide for you a return on investment cost analysis to measure the cost of the project versus your overall benefits over a period of time. And these blue and green bar charts that you see here are, for example, inventory, expediting costs, holding costs, and things of that nature. But the overall impact of doing forecast accuracy is really very simple, in my opinion. You produce a greater degree of forecast accuracy, we will show you in a holdout sample in a previous period, historically, what you did versus what you should have and could have done using the CT SAS application. And those represent real savings dollars associated with it. So again, greater degrees of forecast accuracy, measuring forecast value add, doing more timely planning, measuring planner and improving planner productivity yields real impact on your overall inventory and workforce, as you see here. So thank you very much for the opportunity to overview this. I want to emphasize there will be greater degrees of deep dives into each one of these in future presentations. But if you want to talk to a CT Global Demand and Supply Chain Planning Specialist, there's the email. My name is Ed Katz, so you can find me on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for watching our video in our SAS demo series, Deconstructing Demand Planning. If you would like to learn more about how analytics and CT Global can help your business, please email us at info@ctglobalsolutions.com. We would be happy to discuss demand and supply planning, provide you with a personalized demonstration, or even look at some of your sample data. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you for watching.